guest's entire IMDb catalog because we'd be here through probably Tuesday afternoon. But a few things that he has done. Thank you, Carl. Don't drink the water. I like how we put the "don't drink the water" in front of the guest. I'm cool, just whoever's coming up next. Uncharted, Batman, Arkham Knight, as well as Arkham Origins, and of course BioShock Infinite. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, big round of applause for Mr. Troy Baker.
The show will begin in 5 minutes. Whenever I see the lights go down like that, when the lights go down in the city. Is that wrong to do Journey in Indiana?
No,
Okay.
no, you can do Journey as much as you want, as well as Mellencamp. Both of those will win everybody over.
I just didn't know if there was like, as you drove into the state or into the city of Minneapolis, it was like, please no Journey.
No.
And then people that drove there were like, the band or don't journey through here? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, as long as you don't stop believing, you'll be fine. Hey.
Come on, that was pretty good.
No, thank you. Good night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your PopCon. Troy, welcome.
These are surprisingly heavy.
That's what I'm saying. I'm a pretty big guy, and I felt like a very weak person trying to move these around.
These are made of kryptonite. I can't move. Why does Superman have a British accent? Oh, that's right, because Superman is now a Brit. America's hero
all the way
is played by a British person.
from the
As is Spider-Man now. Did you hear that? We just announced who the new Spider-Man is. Thor is British, that's okay. Tony Stark's still American, or is he Canadian? He's American, isn't he?
Yeah, he's American.
He's just really nice, so I just assumed he was Canadian.
Yeah.
right word.
Sorry. Those were the repulsors, by the way.
Okay.
Well,
Hawkeye is American.
he's a country boy.
a
Spoiler alert,
country
by the
boy.
way, if you haven't seen Avengers: Age of Ultron, he's a country boy.
I'm like literally going through. It's like, okay, who's an American?
Scarlet
It's
Witch.
Earth's mightiest heroes, so it doesn't necessarily have to be like. Wasn't there? There was a Canadian. It was Alpha Force.
Yeah, Wolverine is Canadian.
Wolverine is Canadian.
Puck.
He's not
Canadian.
nice. He's not nice at all. I mean, he's nice. He's a good guy, but just don't want to like go drinking with him or whatever. Hey, Logan. Give me your keys. Sorry, I should have said snicked. I apologize. All right, let's get into it.
All right, this is an open Q&A, so that means we want to hear from you guys. Tony, my gentleman friend over there, who is my co-host on our podcast.
Hashtag love wins.
Yeah, there it was. Questions for Troy? Just raise your hand. We've got one right up here in the front.
I love how we beckoned him at the last minute. Here, boy! Like he was expecting a phone call and the guy's going to come out in a silver platter. Telephone call for you, sir. Yes?
Hi, Clyde. This is not a plug that was commissioned. I want to let you know that having gotten your album yesterday, we played it coming in here this morning. Awesome.
Thank you.
It's an incredible thing. And I wondered, do you pursue a music career as well as voice acting down the road, or is this your first album?
So he was asking if, yes? God knows, don't answer the question. So he asked about this album that I put out. It's the first solo album that I did. I did an album with a band that I was in about 10 years ago, which is crazy for me to think. And I'm really glad you brought that up. So here's what's funny. And we have fun at these panels, we have fun at these cons. The whole reason why we do this is because we need to be in community with each other. We need to be in a relationship with each other because we can walk outside of these walls and we'll, reassume our roles as the freaks and the people that don't fit in and the guys that get beat up at recess and all that stuff. But here, we belong. Here, we're cool. Here, we have other people that get us. And that's the reason why I love games. That's the reason why I love comics. That's the reason why I love anime. That's the reason why I love all things nerd. Is because we have look at this. This is amazing. This is an amazing group of people. And I think that it's a disservice for me to just come and talk about, I always hit this thing, and be very self-serving. But there's some cool things that I picked up along the way that I think are transcendent and can apply to anybody. And one of these things is about this album. I was convinced, I was strongly persuaded that I was going to set the world on fire with my music, that I was going to be the greatest thing, the greatest gift to rock and roll since the Beatles. Not true. And that was the path that I was on, and that's what I was going to do, and I was trying to shoehorn in my own dreams into what life was trying to show me and where it was trying to lead me. And so I stumbled into this whole business of acting, and it's the greatest mistake that I've ever made. And I can't imagine my life being any different. And what's cool is that life, I think, will eventually give you kind of your heart's desire. If you really are open and listen to where like life is leading you, and the doors that are opening versus the doors that are closing, and instead of getting discouraged by the doors that get slammed in your face, and there's a huge gate that's open over here and that's just waiting for you to walk through, eventually I think that those desires in your heart, once they're tempered and once they're measured and once they're focused, you can actually fulfill those dreams as well. So even though it looked like life was closing the door on music for me 10 years ago, I actually got to revisit it and do it in a really, really cool original way with this album. And we, being myself and friends and like bros, we dragged $500,000 worth of gear, most of it rented, up to this cabin in the woods in Big Bear, California, and we made an album. And it was one of the coolest experiences ever, and I never would have been able to do it had I still been kicking against the pricks and trying to make my life look like the way that I wanted it to. So I'm really, really proud of the album. Thank you for bringing that up. If you haven't checked it out, I've got like, we literally have, I think, 20 copies left of the album, and I don't know if I'm going to do another reprint or if I'm just going to make another album. I don't know. But we've got some here where you can check it out on iTunes, or it's even on Spotify or whatever. So thank you. Next question. Those people just need to go to the bathroom. They don't have a question. Like, yes, you can go. Get a hall pass. Yes.
All right, so I'm a huge Last of Us fan.
Me too.
And yeah, I can tell. You did a really good job in it, and I was wondering, like, for a sequel, where do you think the story would go with that?
A sequel to The Last of Us. Okay, so and by the way, I know nothing. I don't know if we're going to do another one or not. If we do, then I trust Neil and Bruce and everyone at Naughty Dog to tell a story that needs to be told. I could go either way though, because I think it could stand alone as just its own thing, and like Journey, the game, not the band, nor the actual trip, didn't need a sequel necessarily. It stood alone as a standalone piece of art that I think is incredible, and if you haven't played it, it's amazing. But for me, there's so much, spoiler, when you go from the prologue and then credits and then cut to 20 years later, you see a completely different guy. And you see someone that was a dad that was just trying to do everything he could to take care of his daughter, to now this feared, brutal man that has, as it said in the character description when I first auditioned for it, a man who has few moral lines left to cross. And that's a very profound statement to make of someone, and if that's true, what led him to that place? So there's a part of me that wants to see those 20 years, but if you played Left Behind, there's so much about Ellie that I want to know. We got to see, obviously, in that what happened when she mentions that at the very end of The Last of Us, when she talks about her and Riley. So being able to see that, I kind of want to see more about Joel. But I almost want to see it. I don't know, man. I go back and forth. But I have to default to this. I trust Neil and Bruce implicitly. So if they were to make a sequel, whatever they decide to take, even if it, honestly, I believe in The Last of Us so much that even if Joel and Ellie weren't in it, that would still be a game that I want to play or a story that I would want to experience. That's an awesome question.
Good stuff.
Next.
Now,
Yep.
I'm sure you've gotten asked this before, but as
Okay.
someone that's interested in it,
Yep.
how would you say or give advice for putting your foot in the door for voice acting?
Run. Run, boy. Run! I do get asked that a lot, and you would think at this point I would have come up with a very easy pat answer, and I don't have one. You know, I understand. You guys are very excited right now. Run!
He didn't make it to the bathroom, unfortunately.
Understood. Raise your hand, buddy. It's really easy. We'll give you a hall pass.
Yeah.
You know, I would never encourage someone to take the path that I took because it seems like the longest and hardest road to get here. For most people, I think specifically falling into whether it be games, animation, anime, whatever, it's almost as if they stepped in it like, oh man, I got a video game career on my shoe, you know? Because I think we especially 10 years ago, this wasn't like a viable career option. If you talk to Nolan North, he was doing this before anybody was doing it, and people were mocking him, laughing at him, going, well, you can't get real work. Now, we have people like Kevin Spacey going, I want to do that, that's fun. And it's because the medium has evolved to such a point. So because it's evolved, the gate and the eye of the needle has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. It's really, really hard to get into it. But I never want to encourage someone to become a voice actor, nor do I want to encourage someone to become a face actor or a hand actor or an ear actor. You're an actor. And a real actor, to me, does not limit themselves to any medium, nor to any performance. You learn how to make decisions, you learn how to make choices as a character, you learn how to build a character from the ground up, and whether you're on stage, screen, mocap stage, doesn't matter, you're an actor. And some of those skills that you need to learn are transcendent. So what I highly recommend, if this is something that you think you want to do, and understand it will cost you a lot, not just in dollars and not just in time, it will cost a lot. It sucks when people give you a bad review. It sucks to be told by a director, we'll pass. It sucks when you go into an audition with everybody else and you look around the room and you're like, I am the worst person to be auditioning for this. And you want to walk up and get out of the room. I've had more, The Last of Us, as a matter of fact. I'm sitting there, I'm mad at my agent for putting me up because I finally got to audition for a Naughty Dog game, and I'm going in and I'm literally the youngest person they're seeing for this role. And I've got like crazy hair, and I was not the right guy. If you look at me on paper and you look at me standing in front of you and you look at Joel, you're like, no, absolutely not. And I wanted to get up and I wanted to walk out. And I was like, if I left now, no one would know. And fortunately, the casting director came up and was like, hey, good, you made it. I'm like, is it good? Is it good? But you have to be willing to make a complete idiot out of yourself and deal with rejection constantly. It's as if your job is walking into a bar and asking every girl out in the bar if you can buy her a drink, if she wants to go to a movie, whatever, and knowing that 99%, if not 100% of that trip to that bar is going to end up with you just drinking by yourself going, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is terrible. But I would highly recommend, I'm answering the question, believe it or not, I would highly recommend getting involved in theater. I think theater will teach you so many fundamentals that you can take into any kind of application of acting. Get involved in college theater, community theater, high school theater, doesn't matter, church choir, I don't care. But what you need to learn is how to see a project and a production from soup to nuts, go through rehearsals, make choices as an actor for a character, take direction, interpret the script, all that kind of stuff. And theater will give you the best tools for you to be able to do that. But as far as how do you get into it, I don't know, dude. I really, really don't know. And eventually, if this is something that makes sense for you as a career path, there's two places where production typically happens. That's either LA or New York. And so maybe it requires for you to do that. But don't do it until it's absolutely necessary, because it's really expensive to live out there. We have earthquakes, but they're cool.
So we know with NDAs and all that kind of stuff, you can't really tell us that much about Uncharted 4.
Okay.
But can you tell us anything about it, like your own experiences or excitement working on the project?
Okay. I love that you know the nomenclature. I can't remember what game I was working on, but I was in the same studio. Nolan was down the hall in a different studio. And I remember walking past, and there was like a window into the studio about like yay big. And I remember just kind of like looking in as they were doing like some of the in-game VO stuff for Uncharted 2. And I just hung out, like hovered outside and waiting for like Amy Hennig and the different people to come out and go, I want to be a red shirt and let Nate Drake shoot me. I just want to be in this game so bad because I was such a fan of it. And, you know, cut to several years later where Nolan and I are good friends. Like that's my boy. And Neil Druckmann called me up and said, I gotta call you in because I really need a Sam, and I need someone that has a relationship with Nolan, that they just give each other gruff and break each other's balls naturally. I'm like, that's us. And also understands what we want to do with this, and also understands the franchise that can literally drop in and hit the ground running. And that's probably the greatest compliment an actor can ever be given, is to be thought of as a solution to a problem. So the first question I had for him was, A, are you effing kidding me? 2, because I was like, don't tease me, dude. Don't tell me I'm going to be in Uncharted, and you're just going, I'm just playing with you, never mind. We'll bring you as like a grunt. But then I said, so Sam is his older brother? Yes. How does that work? Because I'm not significantly, but I'm definitely a few years younger than Nolan. And what was cool was that we got to work out for ourselves how that made sense. How do we play that? And for me, everybody knows, like, if you played Uncharted 3, that Nate Drake grew up in an orphanage. So now we have this older brother, so the two of them needed each other. And they both became, very early on, obsessed with this legend of this treasure, of finding this treasure. And we know, you'll find out why and everything, but the two of them are separated. And to me, in some ways, Nate has moved on. He's found family in Sully and Elena, and he's kind of like found his own path. And to me, Sam never did. Sam is still stuck back as that kid in the orphanage. So in that sense, the elder becomes the younger and the younger becomes the elder. So it actually makes sense that Nate's mentally older than Sam. That being said, it looks freaking amazing. It plays incredible. The things that they have added to it don't feel tacked on. They feel like they're always stuff that you wanted in 1, 2, and 3, and now you get them in 4. And they're about to release the extended gameplay footage that we showed at E3, and you're gonna lose your flippin' mind. It has. Do you remember the chase scene in Uncharted 2, where all of a sudden you turn around and the gunship or whatever is like coming barreling down that alley? Anybody play Uncharted 2? Okay, one of the greatest games ever. What we do in Uncharted 4 makes that scene look like, oh, that's cute. Let me introduce you to the big brother of that scene. I think it'll be the biggest and most ambitious Uncharted 4 game that you've ever seen. Uncharted game, period. It'll be the biggest Uncharted 4 you've ever seen.
That's a high bar.
What is in this water?
That's a very high bar.
And honestly, as a gamer, I can't wait to play it. So you'll be pleasantly pleased.
Yep, right there.
Thank you. I feel like in the last decade or so in pop culture, we're starting to see a renaissance where villain roles are starting to get a lot more interesting. And between Arkham Origins, Far Cry 4, Mass Effect 3, you've got more than a few villain roles on your resume. What is it like to try and create an interesting villain character that can keep pace with the hero?
Jeez, it's Saturday morning, man. That's a really interesting question. I'd like to play you guys. I think that for the longest time, the hero, they were really expanding what the hero role looks like, and that's where we got like the anti-hero, and then I didn't want this, but this is who I have to be now. That kind of whole guy for a long time. But meanwhile, we just kind of left the villain hanging out on an arch, you know, completely flat. And I look at like what Hitchcock did, and Hitchcock said that you must make your villain empathetic. A convincing, you know, antagonist is empathetic. You look at Norman Bates, and you care about Norman Bates, even though he's a psychotic, pardon the pun, killer. And Harryhausen, who's the person who like came up with more monsters and everything through old school Hollywood, said the best monster is one that you can imagine in repose. So I think that the villain character, the antagonist character, is always going to be the most complex, because you have to empathize with him, you have to imagine him being vulnerable, you want to hate him, but you want to love him at the same time. If you look at The Last of Us, who's the antagonist in that story? Who's the bad guy? Who's the villain? What's the final boss fight? The doctors in the operating room? There is no antagonist other than the one you choose. Because even, spoiler, sorry, if you look at David never lied. David never did anything bad. It wasn't until Ellie comes after him that he's like, okay, now you're a problem. But I empathize with David. I understood where David was coming from. So that to me is the most compelling story, is when you don't know who the hero is and you don't know who the antagonist is, and it's completely up to you and your perspective. So flipping the coin, if you look at like Pagan Min, when I went in to meet with the team about that, they said, whatever you want to do. You have free reign to do whatever you want to do. We have an idea what the character is, but we want to see what you come up with. One thing, we don't want the Joker. I was like, interesting direction. Let me see what else I have in my bag of tricks here. And we did this audition scene that was kind of an offshoot of the Crab Rangoon scene that you see actually in Far Cry 4, with a little bit of Inglourious Bastards, that whole scene with the milk and everything. Who's seen Inglourious Bastards? You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Christoph Waltz just the entire time. And there were lines, and there was like a script, and that went bye-bye very, very quickly. Especially when the assistant, who was like making sure that there was enough coffee and water and everything in the audition room, walked in halfway through the scene. And I just remember I was talking like this, and all of a sudden she walks in. I said, I'm sorry, who is this? Who is this walking into this room right now? No, don't leave. Sit down. And she's looking at me like, I don't know what it is. Like, have a seat, please. Just no, make yourself comfortable. Would you like some coffee that she brought in? It looks very delicious. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to murder her right in front of you. And she just starts going, I don't know what to, and meanwhile the team's going, this is it. You know, this is the kind of guy we want. So I'm going to peel your face off and put it on my own. It'll be the most glorious makeover I've ever had. And that, you know, to be able to have that much latitude is what every actor wants. But it's only because I had built some level of trust through other performances that made them go, let him go. If they never heard of me, if I never done anything before and I did that, maybe it works, but otherwise they're like, yeah, we wrote a script. We'd like for you to do that if you don't mind. So to answer your question, there's a part of me that likes playing villains more, because I love finding, you know, a hero, you always are supposed to empathize with the hero, and it's very easy. Like with Joel, there's always that scene with Sarah that you can always come back to, which is a Blake Snyder thing, which is, it's a thing called Save the Cat. And if you're a writer, it's a wonderful book for you to read, because there's a lot you're going to throw away, but there's a lot about his formulas that really, really work, especially for cinematic writing. This is the longest answer to a very I'm trying to be as interesting as his question was. Does it make sense? So to answer your question, I love playing the villain because I like to parse out the minutia that makes a villain really, really interesting. I yield my remaining time to the floor.
a good answer.
I like that she had to take her jacket off for like,
Oh, no.
I have a question. Yes.
Anyways, sorry, I forgot to excuse me. I actually have a very bad speech impediment. I'm not good at talking in crowds, so.
Me too.
I noticed that people are acknowledging a lot of your Western video games, a lot of the work, but I also want to acknowledge your talent in more of the localization in games such as Persona 4 and all the animes and stuff.
Yes.
I was looking through Wikipedia real quick to refresh my memory of all the stuff you ever did, and I actually discovered that you played Action Bastard in Shin-chan.
Anybody remember Shin Love?
That wasn't that was a question.
Which we had to always make sure I did it off to the side and not out in front.
Good.
Jews. Terrible. Terrible.
My dad wouldn't like you.
Shin is, I mean, if you're not familiar with Shin is basically the Simpsons of Japan. It has been on forever, and it's the most irreverent, hilarious, amazing anime show. If you need a break from normal anime, watch Shin.
A little fun fact was actually was supposed to be not like The Simpsons, was like a kid's show, kind of like SpongeBob, but just the whole censorship. But anyways,
And then penis jokes came out, and it was like, never mind.
We
Seriously.
haven't even really got to the answer yet. We've gone all these different directions.
Literally, a quote from the show, to be a man, you must have honor, and a penis.
it's
true.
One of my favorite games that you did was when you played Kanji Tatsumi in Persona 4. Close second is Gabators in the Sky of 4.
Pretty.
So I want to know, this is kind of like a two-part question. The second part, totally optional. So when you were playing Kanji Tatsumi, I want to know how did you come upon being his voice, and how was it like working with the set and playing I'm sorry. Yeah, how was it like? How did you come across it? How was it like? And second part, if you can you act out your favorite quote from the game?
Well, that's the easiest part. Let me get to the first part first. First of all, what a great time to be alive. And I don't know where you guys fall in the political sense or not. I'm going to go ahead and say that with the group that we have here, you probably have an affinity for things that are on the fringe, things that are not exactly on the right side of the fence, but maybe on the left. Who knows? But Kanji was such a wonderful surprise because there's a lot of times, for a lot of Japanese games where it's like you're playing like Soul Bad Guy, Guilty Gear, just be a badass. That's literally the only direction we could give. Just be like this, where you Hayabusa. Same thing, just like be this guy. I understand. The show will begin in 5 minutes. But Kanji was such a surprise because there's the team at Atlas, which obviously I knew the Persona franchise. I trust Atlas, they make great games. And they wanted to do something very, very different. It was like, this game, dude, anybody play Persona 4? Okay, really heavy game. Like, if you look at the allegory that they chose as far as falling into the shadow world and everything, is so reflective of the culture of the people that love to play those kind of games. Meaning, every one of us wrestles with our own shadow version of ourselves. And to me, to look at Kanji, and we started going through the scenes, and I'm like, I got a question. Because I see the guy in the leather jacket, the hair, and the earrings, he's like a badass. And so, yeah, I just want to kind of have like this voice, this kind of guy. And then you flip the script, and you're like, there's another version of this character we need to do. And I'm like, is he gay? And Atlas goes, what do you think? Oh, don't leave this up to me, man. I don't want to be the one. And it was like, it's up to you. We can either make it that he just loves cute things and he's effeminate, or that this is a thing for him. I'm like, I think it's incredibly profound if we actually say that this is what the kid, it's an identity thing that we all wrestle with. And sometimes that manifests itself in different ways. Sometimes it's sexuality, sometimes it's gender, sometimes it's the things you love. Sometimes it can be the fact that I love comic books. I don't want anybody else to know because they'll beat me up at recess. These are all identity issues. And I got to do an interview, I think with either Game Informer or somebody, where we talked at length about it. And it was the first time that I got to talk about Kanji, and the shadow Kanji and that version of himself being gay and what that looked like. And it's incredible that, and this is why I love games so much, is because we play games not as an escape, kind of. We play games not as entertainment, kind of. But we play games because we're gamers and we want to experience life, and it's an amazing way for us to be enthralled by characters in a world that we can spend hours in and somehow even cathartically work through our own stuff. And there's been a lot of people that have come up to me after playing Persona, or coming to Ashley Johnson after playing Left Behind and saying, thank you. Thank you for giving me words for how I'm feeling. Thank you for giving me the strength to step out and be brave about this. And I'm honored to have been a part of something like Persona that could have spoken so relevantly to a generation. And I'm not trying to make too many. At the end of the day, it's like, you got Teddy over there. You can't take yourself too seriously when you got a big teddy bear that, can shoot things out of his eyes. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm honored that Atlas trusted me with a character that I feel is really important, especially today. So, that being said, get Ben! There you go. I'll throw a chair too. How much time do we have? We got time for a few more, right?
We got a little bit of time left.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here today. And
Thank
I'm
you.
very honored to ask this question from my friend who lives in England, and he's a huge Metal Gear fan, and he just wanted me to ask you what your experience was like working in that universe and how it compares to any of the other work that you've done, those major franchises and projects.
Metal Gear. Talk about another franchise that is just like made such an impact, and because Kojima decided to make Metal Gear, so many other people have decided to make games. I mean, I can say this because he never will of himself. I look at Neil Druckmann as another Hideo Kojima, as another Ken Levine, as another Cliff Bleszinski, as another one of these guys that we will look back and go, those guys are the reasons why I wanted to make a game, and I want to make a game like they did. Gears of War taught us, the invaluability of cover-based shooting. Metal Gear taught us how you can make a really massive game and still have sheep in it that somehow makes sense. Or what an exclamation point over a box means. I don't know what's going on at Konami. But I love Kojima, and I love him as a dude. I respect him as a game maker, as really one of the first cinematic game makers that we had, someone that really understood in a very Sergio Leone kind of spaghetti western way of making film in a game, and for giving us one of the greatest video game characters ever in the multiple iterations of Snake. Giving us, before there was Game of Thrones, there was all of the characters of Metal Gear for us to try to follow those story arcs because they're so incredibly confusing. And for me, as a fan of the franchise, to be in a Metal Gear game, especially this one, is huge. And I'm glad that I wasn't Snake, because that Kiefer, to his credit, Kiefer Sutherland knocked it out of the freaking park, and he came in and he put the work in. So I love David Hayter. I love David. He's a good dude, and he's Snake. But so's Kiefer. And that guy showed up and rolled up his sleeves and got dirty on this game. So reserve judgment until you play it. You only have like 2 more months left, and trust me, it'll be worth it. But the fact that I get to be Ocelot, there's an Ocelot in every game, and that's, again, I'm partnered, or I get to be with, counted among some really, really great actors between Patrick Zimmerman, Josh Keaton, and me. That's cool, and it's a great version of Ocelot, too. So I can't wait for everybody to play it, and I think it might be the most ambitious game I've ever seen, just in sheer scope of what you can do inside that game. There's No Man's Sky, which if you check that out, that looks mind-blowing too. We get it. This isn't dealing with planets, it's just dealing with one. Yeah, I think it's going to be incredible. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about it.
We got another question. We have time for about 2 or 3 more. That's about it.
You've done motion capture work for The Last of Us and Infamous Second Son. Do you see the new visual technologies such as virtual reality and augmented reality affecting your craft?
No, I think it's only going. Matter of fact, I think that. Does everybody know who Cliff Blazinski is? Okay, so Cliff and I were talking about this at E3, and he said, I've always believed in VR. I've just never believed in the time that it was trying to come out. And virtual reality, there used to be these, kind of like an arcade. They had them in Dallas. I'm sure they had other places where you play BattleTech. Does anybody remember BattleTech? Okay, there you go. So that was like the first VR game that you could go in and do. And it never caught on because we can't put it in the living room. We can't bring that. It's not going to replace your Xbox or your PS4. Stop it. I'll just murder you. I think that VR is finally, after everything that I've seen between Oculus, Morpheus, Gear VR, I think it finally can be very, very viable. I still don't know what it looks like. I don't know if you want to spend, like most games right now, a single player campaign is between 10 and 14 hours. And most people that I know, like people on Wednesday were telling me, he's like, I beat Arkham Knight, I already platinumed it. I'm like, I hate you so much. I don't know if people will have the bandwidth to be able to spend time in VR that much. But I've already partnered up with a company in the UK, as a matter of fact. We're going to start creating content for virtual reality. I think it's definitely going to be something that has legs this time. I was really excited about HoloLens. Because did you ever see the E3 Minecraft? We were all losing our minds. We were like, the future is here! It's like going crazy. It's a little bit different. It's not quite there. There was a Halo HoloLens experience that you could do at E3 where you basically walked into a hall like this that was all decked out as if you were like in the outer colonies. And it had the entire aesthetic everywhere you looked. Like these walls, naturally, practically not within the HoloLens, looked like you were inside of one of the drop zones somewhere. And then you had the HoloLens, which basically acted as your HUD. That's cool, unless you put it in a room like this, then you're just looking at a little thing right here. So I think all of these things we're seeing are in their embryonic phases, and they're going to grow, they're going to develop, but it's going to be a while. But I don't think it's necessarily going to impact what I do. That being said, I think if you're not growing, you're dying. So there's a lot of people that, like originally all mocap was done by stunt people. And they didn't have to be actors. They just had to move really well and look, awesome when they were doing their stuff. Now you need to be an actor. Now you need to be an actor that can kind of do some stunts, at least a little bit. Make it to where we believe that it's the same person. There's one scene in Uncharted where I had to hang, literally like this, for a while. I don't know if you've ever done that. Just like put like a rope around your arm and just dead hang. It's terrible. It's terrible. I don't want to see how long you can last. So there's things that I've done in my games that required me to grow and develop. We'll see what that looks like within VR and AR. But I want it to be something that's prominent and prevalent in the living room, and not just something that's an installation. I want to spend time in that world. In 360 space? Yes, please. Has anybody read Ready Player One? It's a great book, Ready Player One. I want that world. That's what I want. I want to be Percival, and I want to be inside that world so bad. I want to play through my favorite movies is what I want to do. All right, one last question. Make it a good one.
Last one, where are we at? Where's Tony? Oh, there he is. He's coming right over here. Last question.
Okay, so you've given advice about how to be an actor, go to theaters, work with theaters and whatnot. And you said when you mentioned your album, you stumbled into acting. How exactly did you stumble into acting and make it as far as you have now?
Okay, what a great one to end on. We were doing our album at this studio in Dallas. And again, that's where my focus was. But then I found out that just down the hall, they were doing car adverts. Like, this something, something, something. Shake hands with an emoji, screamed on the motorplex. That whole thing. And I was like, hey, I've always wanted to be in radio. And so I popped my head in the door and I was like, hey, I want to do car commercials. The show will begin in 2 minutes. And they were like, hey, get out. And they kicked me out. They're like, we don't want you in here. A week later, I get a phone call from one of the guys at the studio, said, if you still want to give that thing a go, be here in 10 minutes. And I live 20 minutes away, so, I mean, I just haul ass down there. And I walk in the booth, and the guy's like, what? I'm like, I'm the guy that has pages with the words on it. Just being super crappy to me. And he goes, jump in the booth, let me see what you can do. And so I just did what I'd always heard on the radio. I was like, Sunday, you know. And he's like, oh, okay, well now try this one. Like, do you have problem with diarrhea? You know, it was just like all of the worst things. What's the answer to that question? No, I don't have a problem with diarrhea. I think it's great, actually. It's just fine. You just need to live in symbiosis with it. And so the guy was like, you're great. How much do you charge? I'm like, I don't know. How much am I supposed to charge? He's like, you charge this much. I'm like, okay, question. Do you mind telling me why a week ago you didn't want to know my name and now I'm your guy? He goes, yeah, the guy who did our car commercials for the last 25 years had a heart attack and died. Oh, so bad for him.
Sunday?
Bad for him, good for me? Is that what we're going? So literally, you can't plan that. That's you just being in the right place at the right time. It's dumb luck. It's tripping backwards. It's stumbling forwards. It's that kind of thing. So that's why someone says, oh, how do you do it? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you how I did it. But that led to me meeting Chris Sabat, who says, you're really, really good. Why don't you come to Funimation? I want to put you on the show. And then you go from Funimation to a buddy of mine that I played with down in the music scene in Dallas goes, hey, we're doing this game called Brothers in Arms for Gearbox Software. Do you want to? Yeah, I'll do that. And then that led to this and that led to this. And I just had to be open and be willing to take a risk. So that's the only thing that is transcendent and relates to every actor is at one point some choice, some decision was presented to them that they had to take a risk and they had to be open. But it came on the fact that I got told no, I got told to get out, I got told to, we're not interested in you. And it was all while I was focused on something else. So just put your head on a swivel and be aware of what your parents, believe it or not, your teachers, your friends are telling you that you have to do. That you should do this, or that this opportunity is awaiting you. But I want to do this, I really want to do this, I want to make games. Cool. You're really good at this though. And what's so cool is that if we listen to that and we actually follow through and we all take risks, infinitely we'll make the world a better place. And I know that sounds really, really glib, but it's true. Can you imagine if we were all doing what we loved? We wouldn't have people out there that are walking into a church and shooting people. If we all just found something that we were good at, that we were supposed to be doing, and we liked doing it, we're just not pissed off anymore. We're okay with the person that's to the left and the person to our right. So I don't know. Either that or I'm just an idiot who just loves making games.
I'm going to go ahead and speak for everybody and say you're not an idiot. Very intelligent man, Mr. Troy Baker.
Yeah. Thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate it. That's very, very kind. It's very, very kind. Yeah.
Yep. Troy's going to be heading over to the photo booth area here in a few moments, and then he's going to be returning back to his booth around 1 o'clock-ish, where you can pick up one of the final copies of his band's new album.
Yeah, thank you.
So if you do purchase it, get a picture with him as well, and get him to sign it, and get him to hold your child, and get him to do all kinds of cool stuff.
I will return all children, by the way.
Perfect. Wonderful. One more big round of applause. Troy Baker.
Thank you guys very much.